So right now I am rewatching K-On! And right now I'm taking a walk, but I um have been rewatching K-On! Over the course of the last month or so with friends. Two friends who haven't seen the entire show. One of them watched up until episode 9. The other saw none of it. And like kind of seeing them fall in love with this show that has been with me for around 10 years now. I think it's been maybe like I don't know if it's been exactly 10 years or maybe it's coming up on 10 years, but I've been watching this show and loving this show for 10 years, and it was one of my major obsessions when I was like in late middle school, early high school. I was very, very annoying with how much I loved this show, and it did a lot of things for me. One, it was my first cute girls doing cute things show, a genre of anime that I really enjoy. It was kind of one of the things that helped get me really into Yuri. One of my first ships is Ritsu x Mio. I was super into them. I would think about them all the time and read doujins of them. I wasn't really a fic person at that time like I am now, though. The last year or two, I haven't really been reading that many fics, but I want to get back into that because, like, low-key, very little beats reading a good fan fiction. Like a good fan fiction, you can do so much. Like, I don't know, like whenever I make the decision to like just sit down and read a good fanfic, I always have a great time, you know. And but anyway, I would say now I'm way more into the Yui x Azunyan ship, but also I'm just really into the idea of them as a polycule, because when I see like a group of girls together, I just want them to all be in one polycule. I want them to all like just be with each other. Hint hint for those who are paying attention to my comic. Fucking and like, I mean, yeah, by the end of the show, it really feels like these girls are married. At least that's what my friend said. But, like, what I really wanted to talk about with K-On! And something that I've noticed is that it's really hard to resist the show. K-On! Is, like, a show that a lot of people aesthetically are repulsed by, or, like, propose for whatever reason, and there's some reasons. One, it's a anime with cute moe girls in it, and people are repulsed by that for a number of reasons. A lot of it, sometimes they like are more Tumblr types who can't really get into that for feminist reasons. Sometimes it is just like, this is very obviously cringe, and a lot of people just can't, if something like makes them cringe in some kind of way, that lets them know that they shouldn't really like fucking watch that show. For me, that's the opposite. If something like makes me cringe, then I know it's like tapping into like some sort of feeling, and that cringe response I have should be transformed into a love response, because it is an empathetic response. Like, cringe media is often just media that taps into something really intimate. that is actively embarrassing to engage with, like Sonic the Hedgehog like appears in psychedelics for a reason. Like Sonic the Hedgehog is like this like self-indulgent anime-esque, like gamers find Sonic cringe a lot of the time because the games themselves aren't good in the way they see that games are supposed to be good. Like, but like one of the great things about Sonic is that it's not really concerned with being a quote-unquote good game. It's more so concerned with, you know, Sonic Team themselves experimenting with whatever the fuck, and a lot of the times their products just get fucked over by corporate shit. But you know, there's always, like, cringe media, whatever it may be, tends to tap into something like very personal and specific, where a lot of media that is very accepted, like let's say like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or Disco Elysium, kind of speaks to a more broad thing. It doesn't push into any like deep squishy parts, and if a thing can do that really well, then you will see it kind of be universally satisfying to see. But the reason why people get obsessed with cringe things is because it taps into that deep squishy part, especially if you're autistic. Then you are more likely to disregard the cringe factor in that social thing, because you likely value your interests over being socially accepted, which is a thing I am always going to side with personally. So yeah, it's very obviously cringe aesthetically. Anime is cringe because anime is the desire medium of Japan. It is all about like tapping into the animator's true desires, or cartoon. There's like things that cartoonists do and what they want, but a lot of the time isn't socially acceptable when making a cartoon, because what a cartoon is a meticulous fetishistic creation where you are drawing a shitload of drawings and obsessing over these characters and this world, whether it's a small solo animator project or a big production. It is a naturally obsessive thing and will attract people who are very obsessed and passionate about the medium. So like animators, they want to do specific things, and sometimes a lot of the things they want to do is like they want to do very fetishistic things, like sexually or non-sexually. They want to have certain things interact. They want to really like bring a certain like movement in animation to its full potential and make it like exactly satisfying the way you want it to. That's also a thing K-On! Does. K-On!, it has these like perfectly squishy, marshmallowy girls that just like no one else can really draw like accurately. Like, it is a very unique style that Kyoto Animation cultivated for this show. So K-On! Is very much like this. I mean, the interactions between the girls are what a lot of people would just say juvenile. Like, Mio is so unbelievably startled and scared of everything that even mentioning the idea of telling a scary story sets her off and makes her like tremble in fear. And if you have like a certain proclivity to how quote unquote realistic you want your characters to act, then you will be like, well, that's fucking weird and not right. That's like written like a baby show, because you know, to us Americans who aren't well versed in otaku media, this feels like a children's show. This feels like real baby shit, but it's also like has some otaku fetishistic elements that it's way lower than a lot of its contemporaries, but still very much there, especially in early on in the show, where it's like. And like that's the thing I think a lot of otaku are very attracted to, having a very juvenile and childlike like ways that characters interact with each other, or characterizations of characters, while also having these fetishistic sexual exploitation elements. It's one of the reasons I love otaku media, I'll tell you that. But like, and like I feel like for a lot of shows it will just put people off completely. Like if you try to show a normie like someone who is completely repulsed by fetishistic otaku media, if you showed them Rokubu, they would hate you. You know, they could not get into that. But K-On! Is like just right. It's just right for someone to pass through. And like what I'm really getting at is that K-On! Is kind of irresistible to a lot of people. Like I have over the years seen people try to dismiss K-On! Like they dismiss a lot of the otaku media I'm into. But K-On! Is always something they end up having an interest in, or they end up sticking with, even if they say they don't like it. Like, I remember my sibling, he thought K-On! Was totally gay. Like, and thought it was, like, totally cringe. But he watched the whole thing, and still claimed it was bad and cringe, but he couldn't stop watching it. Same thing with another friend of mine who, because of like certain ways he perceived himself as a masculine person, felt weird and bad about indulging in K-On! A lot of people don't like it for optics reasons, because you know, I've said all the things that have to do with the actual show. But the other thing people really dislike about K-On! Is that it's associated with Nazis. Now, K-On! Is by no means a white supremacist show. It is literally just a show about friendship and, like, drinking tea and shit. It has nothing to do with white supremacy. But because 4chan reveres the show and holds it highly and uses it in memes, it is seen as a thing that signals that you're some sort of chud, even though it doesn't even make any sense, because it's a show about friendship and tea parties. So what I instantly connect this to is My Little Pony. My Little Pony is also a show like this. Like, you know, the whole brony phenomenon was remarked upon. And like, because the thing about bronies is that they would say the show is cringe and gay, but they couldn't stop watching. Now the reason for this is because it's very simple. It's about friendship. People like friendship. Friendship is pretty much the most universally loved thing on the planet. Even if you have no friends, you probably desire friendship. There's very few people who truly don't desire friendship in some capacity. Most people do, and even if I feel like if you're drawn to K-On! Or you're drawn to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, it's because it's about friendship, and it also has these cute, instantly desirable characters. Like, they are pleasing to the eye. They're kind of like come from a lineage of making like cutesy, advertising friendly like creatures that you want to buy. You know, like the cute, snuggly, plushy creature that's what K-On! Is. And it's also about music, which is also the other universally loved thing. Everyone loves music. Again, there's very few people on earth who truly don't like music of any kind. Well, of course, you can have very few friends or never hang out with people very often. You can also be someone who's not really into music. You may have some songs you like and you put it in a playlist, but you don't really care too much about music. But it's still appealing in a very universal way. But it's not that way in the sense that a Marvel movie is, because a Marvel movie or something very broad like that doesn't hit this very squishy, intimate center. It satisfies you cerebrally to like, oh, here's all these characters that I know and I'm seeing them all together and they're defeating a villain, and it's something that especially to us Americans, we kind of find a sense of togetherness and security and bonding over violence and defeating an enemy. And like the more intimate matters are reserved for closed doors. But K-On! Never goes too specific or squishy to the point where it like makes you angry, because there's a point where the normie gets really mad and can't ever engage with it because it's too intimate. It feels like they were violated. If like a normie watches like Kodomo no Jikan, a show that's literally about like a fucking, that is like simultaneously takes seriously this kid who's attracted to an adult and the trauma that made them that way, but is also has plenty of lolly fan service in it, that is repulsive to normies. You can't, like, they won't accept that because it's too in its own world. It's too self-indulgent. The normie feels like they have to earn things in order to like get that, and there's certain things that should never be touched in their eyes. So, but K-On!, it never goes too deep into fan service. It like never feels like it exceeds more than it goes in there, so it pierces your mind, because another thing everyone likes is sex. But you know, especially us in the West, we don't like to talk about that in public unless it's kind of shrouded in like the view of the marketplace, where it's like if sex is framed as you buying something, as like, here's someone with a really good build who conveys to you that they're expensive, you know, they're physically fit and skinny and smooth and youthful looking, so you want to buy it so you can propagate your family and have the status of being able to obtain a woman who looks like that. But when it's like these cute characters in these silly fetishistic situations, there's only so much a normie can take before they start feeling like a monstrous human being. And so, like, K-On!, because it kind of still is in that comfortable space, people find it irresistible. I mean, really, K-On! Is like a sitcom, but more genuine. Like, because Americans love sitcoms, like, even like Zoomers, they love sitcoms, often in the form of like streamers. Like a thing, like watching a group of people on screen every single day or in a routine is something we like. But for the most part, it's shrouded in irony and this idea that, well, obviously, you know, we all secretly hate each other, You know, there might be some saccharine moments, but there needs to be this like constant conflict and cynicism. Like, you know, if you watch like Friends or The Big Bang Theory, that's the case. K-On! Is different. K-On! Is completely genuine. It is about friendship fundamentally. It's about just simply about bonds, and and the characters genuinely love each other, and they express that love for each other very openly. And yes, they have like jokes where they dig at each other, but at the core is very sweet. K-On! Is very sweet, and that is like a thing Americans are deprived of, and they don't like letting themselves have it. And when it's too sweet, they can't do it. They absolutely reject it and close themselves off from it completely. But sometimes something like My Little Pony or K-On! Comes along, where it just draws them in, and they'll perform like they're watching it ironically, or sometimes they will never admit that they do like it, but irony is just liking something, but you're keeping it a secret. You're like, that's really it. It's just like, well, I like this thing, and I'm engaging with it, but I have to let people know that I'm not actually liking it. But like, ironic enjoyment is still enjoyment. You're just being a pussy at this point. Like, irony is just cowardice. And yeah, irony could be a good literary device, of course, both in the traditional sense and in the cultural sense. But overall, irony is you kind of just being a pussy. So what I'm saying is, stop being a faggot and admit you like K-On! I know if you're watching this video, if you're watching me, then you probably don't have this issue. I'm just observing a thing with one of my favorite anime. Yeah. K-On! What's your favorite K-On! song? Mine is probably Rice is a Side Dish because it sounds like an Andrew WK song.